It's the Jakub Show. It's time. Let's go.
The creative process is always something I struggle with because it's always there, but there isn't enough time for it. And outside of podcasts that I've been doing for a very long time, and when I dabbled in music, I first started writing stories probably about 20 years ago. I don't know what it is, but the process of storytelling, would it be through podcasting, which I haven't done a lot. I haven't done actually any storytelling through podcasting yet, but through music that I've done and writing, it's a sort of output of energy that's necessary for me. And storytelling has been something that I enjoy. And either if through creating them myself or listening to others, and I think that's where some of the genres of music that I prefer are the ones with more storytelling. And it's what I'm drawn to. Especially when it comes to, let's say, movies or shows, a continuous storyline and storytelling that builds and creates and builds and creates is more interesting than a story for a payoff. Payoffs are important, but the storytelling and the building to a payoff is how I like to engage in content creation. So, what does this all have to do with writing? Well, let's talk about writing today. And I don't know, this is one of the first episodes that I'll do about actual writing, because as I'm able to do any topic I want on this show, writing is something that I've had on the back burner for the past about 10 years. When I started writing, poems and music. First poems, then music. And it was sort of an introduction to putting words on paper in the most basic way. With poetry, I experimented with the levels, writing, characteristics of objects, and being detail-oriented and very descriptive. Continuing that, as I don't really like to create projects along form myself. I like to absorb them, but I definitely don't like creating them. So when it came to writing, I couldn't sit down and put down a concept of a novel. There's just not enough material in my head to use as filler, and I didn't want to do it injustice. So when I started writing and putting stories together, I had sort of an idea of I should do short stories, which plays to my strengths because I struggled, especially in college when it came to essays, to be elaborate in my writing. I like to elaborate on things. I like to be to the point. So, a few run-throughs and attempts at writing, it became very clear that short stories will be my future. Because not only do I like to be extremely descriptive of the environment that I'm writing in, I think a self-described style of short stories, which I came to realization very quickly, would be very future-driven. What I mean by that is, when I'm creating stories, which I'll get to what I've created so far very shortly, I like to quickly arrive at a point, run the story through, and finish off with the climax as where it's supposed to be, very close to the end of the story. But the whole process is not super elaborate. Twists, turns, but very straight to the point. So I have, as of today, and this is something that I haven't actually approached in the last 10 years, but about 20 years ago, I started writing, and I created, over the span of like 7-8 years, some 5 short stories that I've created. And there's a lot of different aspects and ideas. And I know everybody has different sort of wants and needs when it comes to reading, like and genres they want to get into. And that's kind of the idea behind my writing. When I'm creating some story that just triggers in my mind, and the last 5 that I created were not necessarily of the same genre. I did attempt to write to feeling. So the first 5 stories that I've written were my attempts at sci-fi, my attempts at the daily hustle and bustle, some futuristic, and the horror genre, and of course, out of nowhere, the dramatic angle of lifestyle. So why did I choose to do all those different things? Well, at the very beginning of my writing journey, as once I discovered that short form was the way to go, short stories and the descriptives, I learned my tactics. I learned what I wanted to do. I was creating my style over the first couple of years. And to me, there's no better way at exploring, the ever-changing inspirational content of my mind than to just write what feels right. So if I sat down and I wanted to write a story about space, bam, wrote a story about space. Story about relationships, boom. Just because in the moment, that's what I wanted to write. The freedom it gives me to create stories on the go, like this, is what's drawing me to, at some point, come back to writing and finish off proofreading and editing these stories so I can put them out there. Now, it's also something that drew me away from writing novels, because spontaneous as I am, as you guys can see from podcasts, this is why this field works fantastic for me, is at any time I can sit down with an idea and just do that. I can just record here. Same thing with short stories. I can put out an idea and be done with it. It's very satisfying when I write a story that it comes to fruition and it quickly materializes, and it's like, boom, I'm satisfied with completing it. Yes, you have to go back and edit, but the good thing is once you finish a story and you go back to it, if it's a good enough of a story, it draws you in and you can make it better. If you need to, you can edit, you can correct things, you can fill the story out. That's what I've been trying to attempt to come back to. Now, being a very amateur writer and just working on my style, and at least now I know what I'm aiming at, having time to do this between the shows and everything else is one thing. And the other thing that's stopping me from doing and putting out these short stories is the world we're in. Now, back when I started, the internet wasn't as prevalent for content. And when I had the opportunity to do a lot more research on, at the very beginning of my writing career, it was all about self-publishing. Because getting published by a publishing house, extremely difficult then and even rarer now. self-publishing would have been the key. Now, as myself, I prefer the texture of a book. Sit down, read, absorb information. I enjoy that when I get the chance. My book collection is quite decent, and I like doing that. I'm a little old school that way. The absorption of content nowadays is more to the digital art, media. I just want to say radio. Geez, podcasting. Everything's on everybody's phone. And yes, I could publish Amazon. People can read it on whatever device they want. No, I totally get that. But would it be as authentic? Would the story that I'm trying to convey be as authentic than flipping a page? I don't know. It's an internal struggle that I have where paper and that type of content just means different, like different things. It's just different. And I've tried reading books on a Kindle or my phone. It's just not the same. It doesn't have the experience of using a bookmark, flipping a page, creasing the book in the back, just knowing you've read it. You can see from far away, I read that book. That's why I like used bookstores. My recent experience of used music stores also hits because I like buying used CDs. It's just knowing of having the physical copy of the CD, and books especially, of that information you can keep or you can pass on, but it's a physical copy you can reread, and it's not digital. I think it's that disconnect of nostalgia maybe that keeps it all together. I like that. So when it comes to my own writing journey and writing stories, I'm very conflicted of how I want to approach this in the future. I'm not sure if these short stories that I have already written, which is about 4 or 5 that I've completed that need editing, that I want to self-publish and put them on paper. I'm not sure. It's an extremely hard decision, and it's one I know I will struggle for a very long time. So in the meantime, once that thought is in my head, I'm taking a look at what's next in my writing future. I know those stories are not finished, but I also have probably about 7 or 8 concepts for other short stories. So my creative process basically runs through writing a summary. Here is a story I want to run. I want to write this story. And then I write a full paragraph or 2 paragraph summary of a story I want to write from beginning to end. Story, person, location. I want these things to happen and it should land like this. I do these summaries quite a bit. It's a little guideline of what I want to cover in this story. Once I get into the writing process of that short story, I will throw some point forms that I want to include. And then it gets me writing from there. Again, I struggle with this process even though I love it. And when it comes to the writing style itself, some of the issues creatively is dialogue. Now, I have, from those that know me in real life, I have no problems with dialogue. Come on, I have how many podcasts out? How many episodes? How much do I talk to this microphone right in front of me right now? And in real life, I have the utmost ability to communicate quite well. Even in my sarcastic tone. So, when it comes to putting words on paper, though, to write a fluid conversation, it is one of the main challenges of my writing. Even though character development is pretty good, storylines, interesting concepts that haven't been done are pretty decent, I think. Just my opinion of my own work. I struggle with having a conversation on paper. Very strange. It's just one of those things that I'm trying to work on. and will be one of the key interests when I start back up and writing again. Now, motivation to do so is a totally separate topic, because motivating myself to sit and do all these podcast episodes for all the shows I do is one thing. Extremely rewarding, let's be honest. But maybe I haven't touched on working on my short stories or the eventual short story collection book, because I understand releasing short stories is cool, but my goal is to put them all into one book. Maybe I'm not as into it because it's not close yet. I'm not even halfway to having this come to fruition. Maybe that's the motivating factor that's missing in that aspect of my creativity. So, looking for advice from writers out there, for opinions. Anybody else struggling creatively on different things? And there's only so much creatively you can do. There's only so much, like, between music, and which I still love doing and keeping in the back of my head, podcasts, which are nonstop, which takes a lot of creativity to do. How hard would it be for me to come back and get back at it? What should I do? What's some advice to get over this hump and kind of visualize a goal? I don't know. I have some printouts of at least 3 of my short stories that I did, yes, on paper. That makes it easier for me to kind of read stuff through and get back into it, which are just on my desk. And they're inching closer to my pile of to-dos. So maybe that's one thing. Things I need to do, my to-do pile. I don't know. It's just out there. I figured this would be a good episode to start off the whole writing concept of this show. Again, there's a lot of angles to the Jakub show that I want to tackle. Writing is definitely one of them. I've written music. I've published music. And that was fun. And that's behind even that was the art of storytelling. Was it good? Probably not. Was it creative? Sure. But every song I've ever written has been a storytelling type of song. And I still have a lot of songs that I've written that haven't been published. Tons. Maybe that's why I've been exploring more country music lately, because that's the only genre that still has decent storytelling in it. And maybe music will somehow tie in and push my writing into view. So, with the stories I have written now, the eventual goal one day is to put a short story collection in. And not knowing exactly what's going to be in it, because the amount of story ideas I have, but I'm hoping to also do a short story trilogy of stories that are connected. And that's kind of like a beginning of my reading career way back when. Stephen King, how he connected his stories through characters and universes, and Lord of the Rings even connects his stories through universes and characters. I like that. That's a cool concept to me. Connecting characters to different universes is something that I definitely want to do, because it brings the reader in with familiar characters into a different plane that you can explore. So as I'm talking this out, it's very motivating to do stuff like this. So maybe that's also a thing. If I do more podcast episodes on writing and different concepts of writing, it'll motivate me to do actual writing. I don't know. So if you want to hear me ramble on about stories and maybe break into some reading of things I've written, let me know if that interests anybody that's listening to this right now. I welcome everybody's feedback on anything. Thank you for listening to the show so far. It's doing fantastic things. I appreciate everybody. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and send it to whoever enjoys interesting concepts and ideas in a podcast. And I'll talk to you guys soon.